So if you've been farming up tons of goblins during the current March of the Goblins event in Diablo 4, you now have a very easy way to gear up any alts you may want to play for the rest of the season. And this method is pretty simple. All you're going to be doing is still farming these goblins, but any of the bags that any of the goblins drop, you're going to just put into your stash and you can open all of those on an alt. Now, how this works is every goblin has a chance to drop a bag of essentially the normal loot they would be dropping, but it's just additional inside of this bag. So it's kind of like getting another goblin in one of these bags. But with these bags, you can open it on any characters and you can just put it into your stash, log on to another character and open it up. Now what's really nice is if you have any of the bags that are actually dropping pieces of gear, that gear that you open on the alt will be the correct gear for that class. So if you go say farm up all these bags on a druid, then go open them up on a necromancer, it will be necromancer gear, but the gear will be determined on what level character and what difficulty you are in when you are farming those bags. So if you're doing it on max level character in Torment 4, all of the items dropped from those bags will be based off of that, even though they will be for the class that opens it. So if I'm going and farming on my druid in Torment 4 and I go open it on another character, it will be gear for that character, but it will be all max level gear that can be greater affix gear that will just be incredibly strong, especially if your character is at max level, or if you use the boosting method through the Tree of Whisper caches to get that character up to max level. They probably don't have that great of gear. So you can just farm this up on your main where it's super easy to kill the goblins, send it all to your alt, put it all in your stash, open it on that alt, and you'll be able to gear them up very quickly. Now, like mentioned, all the goblins will have a chance to drop a bag of essentially the gear or loot they normally drop. So normal goblins usually just drop random amount of stuff. They can drop some boss summoning materials. They drop a handful of random pieces of gear, usually all legendary gear. The bag they drop will also just essentially be dropping that, essentially more gear, maybe some boss summoning materials. You have the diamond goblin, which will just drop you gem fragments and runes, and the bag will also be dropping that. You have the odious goblin or the green goblin that drops materials, so his bag will just be a bunch of materials. Then you have one of the really interesting ones in the obol goblin. They drop some obols when you kill them, but it seems this goblin has pretty much a 100% chance to drop a bag of obols. I think they did this so you could save these up and not overcap on them. And why this is so good is because these bags of obols actually drop a ridiculous amount of obols, and because it's pretty much a 100% chance, you'll be getting a lot more bags of obols than anything else. But what you can do is just go buy all the gear you need on that character from the obols vendor. In some of the footage, you'll see that I had to make like close to a dozen trips back and forth to the gambler to spend all of the obols I got. And I only farmed for maybe 30 to 45 minutes to get all the bags in some of this footage. So you can get a lot of these very, very quickly. Then you have the blue goblin, which is the one that when you kill it, it drops a bunch of loot, a ton of pieces of gear, a ton of boss summoning materials, and can drop random elixirs. But when you kill it, it turns into 2 more goblins. When you kill those, they turn into 3. This is probably the best goblin for gearing because you're just getting a ridiculous amount of gear, and every one of those goblins can drop a bag that will essentially just drop what they're already dropping, so boss summoning materials and a lot of gear. This is probably by far the best goblin you can get out of all the common ones. You also have the purple goblin, which is the mythic one. I'm not actually sure if the mythic goblin can actually drop a bag to give you like more mythics. I've never seen one, and they're so incredibly rare that I really haven't heard about them doing that, but that's what you can be getting for all of the other goblins. Now, in one of my previous videos, I went over the most effective way I have found to farm these goblins, but to quickly go back over that, essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going into your networking settings, turn off crossplay, and you're going to have to be at the main menu to do this, but the main reason you're doing that is because you're going to be farming goblins in the open world zones of both of the PvP zones, and you're turning off crossplay because you just want to be in empty zones. You don't want to be in these PvP zones zones with other players that are farming these goblins or just trying to kill you because it's a PvP zone. But essentially, you're just going to start at one of the PvP zones. You're going to run around that zone. Once you clear it, go to the other PvP zone, run around that zone, and go back. And if you're not finding a ton of goblins, what you can do is go back to the main menu and load back in. This will sometimes force you into a new instance, so you'll be able to find goblins more easily that way. And also, to make the search for the goblins much easier, you're going to go pick up Subo as your mercenary. He has the tracking skill that tracks enemies on your map and minimap. It also shows you all of the herb and ore locations, and it seems he increases the range to where you can see goblins specifically on your main map, not your minimap. So basically, all you're going to do is you're going to mount up, you're going to sprint for a few seconds, then you're going to check your main map. And you'll be able to see goblins from quite far away when looking on your main map, and significantly further than you'd be able to see them when just looking at your minimap. So that's all you're going to do. You're going to run around the PvP zones, sprint for a few seconds, and then check your main map. Make sure you're all the way zoomed in, because that will just allow you to see them the most easy. And this event is going to be running until August 5th, so you still have a handful of days to go and farm this. I would definitely recommend, if you're planning on playing for any more into Season 9, I would definitely recommend you farm up a lot of this, because this farming is absolutely ridiculous compared to anything else you can do in the game. You can make like billions of gold in a couple hours of farming, which is ridiculous, especially compared to any other gold thing you can do. You're getting ridiculous amounts of loot. You're getting actually absurd amounts of boss summoning materials, crazy amounts of obols, and if you just get ultra lucky, you could get the mythic goblin and get a resplendent spark and a guaranteed mythic. And on top of all of this, you do have the reputation rewards, which are only obtainable on one character. But if you have a main that's already like fully geared and you're not progressing them anymore, you could still go farm this on your main and then just pick up all of the boxes on an alt, or just put them in your stash and open them all on an alt as well. And there's a ridiculous amount of loot within the reputation rewards. There's a resplendent spark, ridiculous amounts of runes and legendary runes, and just absurd amounts of gear, which will also just give you the correct gear for whatever class you open them up on. So if you want to do that as well for some ridiculous amounts of one-time loot, you can do that on an alt as well, which will definitely boost up their gear pretty quickly. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.